This is Evan Abrams for PremiumBeat.com, and today we're going to take a look at creating a fancy multicolored, multi-layered write-on effect that takes your write-on effect to the next level when bringing on text and other elements. It's quite simple to do, just takes a number of layers, we offset them in time, so let's get to it. So the first thing to do in After Effects is to create a new composition as the size of whatever you're going to be exporting. We're using HD TV 1080 24 frames a second with a duration of 30 seconds. Now we're going to be using a lot of pre-comps here, but on this comp we're going to go ahead and create a new text layer, and this will serve to have our text on it. And it's important at this stage to align your text and to kern your text as you'd like it to appear. So what we'll be doing is making use of the character palette over here to alter the size here, perhaps up to 300. We'll alter the spacing, we'll change it from metric to perhaps optical, and that looks good for me. So for our purposes, we're just going to use the word text. And I'm going to use the align panel, go window align, and then you're going to pull that up somewhere and just stick it dead center of the composition. So we'll be using the text here to write it on. So the first thing to do is to pre-compose this text element. So we go Control-Shift-C to pre-comp it. We're going to call this write on, and that way if we go and put other elements around the write on, it's not going to interfere with what we're doing. So we go inside and we have text here, and I'm going to rename this to be the stencil. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call the duplication of it guide. And the guide we're going to change to have a nice bright red color to it. And the stencil we don't need to look at this point. So what we'll be doing with the text here is we'll be using the pen tool to draw shapes over top of the letters. So I'll just go ahead and begin clicking, and as you can see it creates a shape layer that has a path on it, and then we can do things like keyframing the path and the size and the stroke. And what we're going to do is just set the color to be white. So we're putting white over red, and we're going to toggle off the transparency grid so that we are looking at these colors and we can see very clearly when things are covered, when they're not covered, and so on. So we want to try to get this to be as accurate as possible. You don't want it to be spilling too much over into other shapes, because what we're doing with this first shape is we just want to cover up the top bar of the T. That looks about good. So then, selecting the same layer, take the pen tool and then draw the next part of that shape. A nice vertical bar like so. Move it over a little bit and then increase its stroke size to fill that up. Now we're just going to rename this to be the T layer, and we're going to put it below the stencil layer, and then we're going to go in here, go in and add a trim paths, and that trim paths will determine how long those lines are. We'll just keyframe the end at the beginning to be 0%, move ahead 30 frames, crank it up to 100%, take both of those keyframes, easy ease them, go into their graph editor here, take the handles, and give it a new shape by pulling the end handle towards the beginning to have an influence of 100%, so that they come on with a different type of motion, accelerating and then decelerating out of the curve. And basically we've created something that we will reuse to create the rest of these. Now the next thing to do here is to use your stencil, change it to something like stencil alpha, such that the only parts of the line or anything below this layer that are going to be visible are going to be the things that fall within the bounds of that text. So when we take away the guide and then we take away the blackness and just look at the transparency grid, and as you can see we have the shape writing on. So we will continue this process by doing the rest of the letters, ensuring that our shape layers are all individual to each letter. So starting the E, you'll just take the pen and then you will draw the line here across, and then that'll be it. And you can adjust down as needed and just fill in the rest of the shape. Just draw the first couple here, and then we will skip the rest because watching me do this would be very boring. So when you have the outlines on the letter, then you can go back to original here. You can really just pull up the trim paths, copy it, making sure the playhead is at the beginning, paste it, and then you have those lines coming across. And now we just need to drag that below the stencil, and then it makes perfect sense. So you'll continue this for each of the letters, making sure you animate them all fully and completely using the same timing for each. And I'll just accelerate through that right now. Okay, so all of your text is now animated with a wipe on. We need to take this to the next level. So we're going to first cascade the wipe on by going in to the letters here, and we're going to offset them. So the first one we're just going to offset by 1 frame, the next one will be offset by 2 frames, and the next one by 3 frames, or 4 frames, or whatever you'd like. So one comes on, and then the next, and then the next. That could change. You could change that for yours, but this is just one way of doing it. Now we take all of these, because we want to preserve that timing, and impart it to all the other layers. Then we're going to go pre-compose this. We are going to call this text write on shapes, which will give us a composition. We will now apply a fill to that composition, which will then give it a new color other than white. And we're going to go with perhaps something that 225, saturation of 50, and perhaps a brightness of 25. We're then going to duplicate that layer. We're going to change the fill to be something new, perhaps with a brightness of 50. Duplicate again. Go ahead and change this again. Give it a brightness of maybe 75. Duplicate the layer a 4th time, and now we'll go with a brightness of 100. We are now going to take these layers. We now take these layers we've created, and then we offset them by, maybe 2, 4, and then 6, getting rid of the guide on the back. And then we play through what we've created, and it looks quite wonderful. So in order to go in and tweak this, all you have to do is go in here and edit these layers. What I would advise you to do is to make sure that collapse transformations is on for everything, and that again in these layers collapse transformation is on for everything. So when you go back to your main comp here and you press collapse transformations, you're then able to scale this up as you'd like. However, one word of warning, do note that when you collapse transformations, the stencil from this layer is going to come through onto this layer. So what you may wish to do instead is to do all of your scaling in this part by taking these layers, parenting them all to that stencil, and then simply scaling up the stencil as need be. And that way it will not negatively impact what's going on outside of this comp. Then we're just going to arrange this into the center again. So when we go back to this comp, everything is all good. From there, it's just a matter of stylizing everything and applying the techniques that you've learned to create the rest of the title elements, specifically horizontal bars that wash across, and I'm sure you are smart enough to get that going. This has been Evan Abrams for PremiumBeat.com, showing you how to make a slightly more advanced and very fancy write-on technique that I think is very popular right now. Come to PremiumBeat.com and check out our blog for all sorts of tips, tricks, and tutorials in not only After Effects, but a bunch of other terrific programs. And of course, always come to Premium Beat for all of your royalty-free music and sound effects needs. There's quite an extensive library here, so I would recommend you check it out, because no write-on technique is complete without an amount of whooshing and noise to go with it. Of course, mine didn't have any, but, that's because I'm just a little bit lazy today. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm Evan Abrams. Come to PremiumBeat.com, and I'll see you around the internet.